It was a strange, I would have stopped doing stand-up had I not had virtual comedy.
For me, virtual comedy was
Absolutely.
really about listening to people with a different perspective. And
Yeah.
when
With
I
a
started
different
doing it,
accent.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, that too. Yes.
My plan was to be in New York in May of 2020. And so I joined up with this group called F Comedy Club. And they popped up on my Facebook feed one day in March 2020. And it said, hey, we're doing stuff online. Come join our online mic. And I clicked on it. I was like, I have no idea what this is, but I will do this. And I now run that mic 3 years later. I now run it every Tuesday. But I just clicked on that and I had no idea what I was doing. And it was a very weird experience that first day. But what a great door that opened, because then someone told me about this Facebook group called Displaced Comedians, which I got to know you through that and found out about other shows. And I like it. I like having it in the toolkit, you know? Yeah.
Let's call it my international toolkit. I want to plug into what's going on in the rest of the world. I get trapped in a bubble. I get trapped into like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to think. This is what I'm supposed to see. I want to see what other people see. And I think that having that kind of connection.
I'm based in Egypt, and I was going to do this thing called hashtag gigging in Egypt bucket list. And I managed to just secure a venue that was like going to be down for putting up the live performances. Then COVID happened.
Right.
So it felt like the universe was telling me take a break. And then online community, like I knew comedians via Facebook and Instagram, and I started to get wind of like, you know, International House of Comedy, Laughter on Lockdown in South Africa, comedy in English, which was being run out of LA by Adalia Malik. I believe she's a Egyptian American.
Of all the people I've encountered, I've never met somebody more optimistic than Kelly.
I'm pretty happy. But, you know, like I was saying to you, thank you for seeing that. But
oh, look, she's blushing.
I know this paleness is blushing. I know. But it's it takes a ton of work to find the positive in life, especially with what we've been through over the past 3 years. It takes a lot of work. But prior to that, you know, being optimistic during pandemic times wasn't something, you know, that came out of nowhere for me. I've always kind of had this sort of spirit because, you know, I've dealt with a lot of loss at a fairly young age. I'm a gal in her mid-40s, and I've lost a lot of people to cancer. I've dealt with a lot of illness.
Being optimistic is not for the weak.
No, it takes, you gotta grind at being happy.
For me, I grew up in the ghetto and I saw a lot. At 12, I saw someone get shot. It was a drug encounter, and I was just going to the store for the first time, or I think 11 or 12, and just shot right there. And I didn't know how to process it. And then so a lot of like you loss, and that makes you like, but I'm still optimistic. I still wake up every day.
Where Kelly is coming from. I mean, like I lost my dad to cancer in 2014. I lost my mom to cancer. Ironically, I had cancer, but I beat cancer like 22 years ago. It was the page out of my older sister's book. She was like, when she was in hospital undergoing dialysis for her failed kidney. And when people would visit her and ask her, how is she doing? She would always, with full enthusiasm and gusto, respond, I'm fine. How are you? Tell me about you. What's going on? Like, and it wasn't that fake sunny, you know, that fake sunshine or that fake enthusiasm. She was like just genuinely, you know, upbeat. So I think, you know, I think it might be also genetic that, you know, I come from a long line of people of stoic, like, I think it's our mom. Our mother, the Iraqi blood brings us like that stoic being able to handle.
It's interesting, his mentioning cancer too. Like that's what got me started in stand-up, was losing my first love. He found out too late he had cancer, and I got off that call and I was like, I mean, I was crying. I was ugly crying. But I got off that call and I just had this light bulb moment of like, go try all the things you want to try, because you're here and he's never going home. And maybe that's what helped amp up my sort of find, the Monty Python song, always look on the bright side of life. Like maybe that's why that's a bit of like a mantra for me, because I just sort of find like if I can find one good thing in a shit day, whether it's I woke up, okay, let's run with that and build on that.
How do you stay optimistic when the price of eggs is $12?
Become a vegan.
Think of recipes that require one rather than two eggs.
Exactly. I used to eat 3 eggs a day, and now I'm looking at it like I'm looking at that carton of eggs, and I'm like, you are golden. You have to
they
be
are.
big. Yeah, every other
Yeah.
day. From 3 to
Like, no joke, if you look at like those battery hen eggs, they're like this big, right? And then when you look at what we call, countryside, what you would call in America free range, but here they call them like country eggs, which makes no sense.
walking
Makes
eggs.
nothing. Yeah, it's like, like the eggs of Egypt, it sort of makes it sound like there should be a museum for them.
Here's the biggest complaint that I get from comedians is I go online and I don't get that immediate dopamine hit of laughter. And that's the problem. For people that have turned me down when I try to get them on a virtual stand-up comedy show.
It's a different beast. Like a comedy club and doing stand-up, that is one thing. I think this is more working on the craft of your joke writing rather than the performance and that dopamine hit. But that being said, I have done virtual rooms where there's like 30 people logged in and the mics are on and you get that same connection. So it can happen, but I think this is more of like just getting the work done on your writing and working on your writing.
You get out of it what you put into it. So if you come into it with that energy of, I'm going to connect with other comedians around the world, I'm going to connect with audiences that I don't see, but there's a sort of bittersweet blessing to not being able to see the audiences, because hypothetically, if they, not saying that they're ugly, but if they're ugly and naked and touching themselves inappropriately because that's their fetish, watching comedians and, laughter gets them either, for a guy hard, for a girl wet. And, I think there is always a future for online gigs, depending on how it's managed, how it's run, how it's advertised, who is a part of it. I mean, International House of Comedy took me in, I think, what was it, like 8-9 months ago? And I've never felt more at home with a group of comedians than I have with the International House of Comedy and the Gin and Tonic. Met some really lovely comedians from the United States, from Canada, from Europe, from the Far East, and you can't get that at like an open mic. Like I'm doing an open mic in Cairo on the 26th. I'm not going to have that experience of comedian in New York, comedian in India, comedian in Malaysia, comedian in Thailand, a comedian in Seattle, a comedian in wherever it is Kevin lives, his mother's basement.